you're tuned in. Perhaps you're watching on the BMG Network's YouTube channel. That's the bmgnetwork.com, that YouTube channel, or perhaps you're listening at the BMG Network or on a major podcast platform. However you're tuned in, I'm glad you are. And I want to jump in to what we're going to talk about today, which is a very important topic, because we're talking about something that impacts every one of us as Americans. And that is this current administration, the President Joe Biden administration. Now, it hasn't even been a full year. And I know that there are people who regret voting for Biden. And I'm sure that there are some people out there who do not have any regrets. And I want to talk about those people who say that they have no regrets. I really want to talk about them because I've been giving this some thought. And my thought is that there has to be a reason why anybody would not have any regrets for voting for Joe Biden. I mean, like, I'm thinking, are these people real? Like, if somebody said, I don't have any regrets for my vote, like, can they actually can they be serious? Are they just lying? I mean, who in the world would think that what's going on right now is a good thing? I mean, I don't know, but I know that there are people who feel that way. So I shouldn't say I don't know. I know that there are people who feel that way. But the question is why? And I have some answers, and that's what we're going to talk about today. I have some answers because if you don't regret, if you voted for Joe Biden, which I did not, I just want to make sure I say that, lest I be put in that category. But if you voted for Joe Biden and you have no regrets for your vote, you have to fall into one of what I'm calling one of 3+1 categories. Okay, I'll say that again. You'll understand it as we go. But you must, if you have no regrets for voting for Joe Biden, if you did, you must fall into at least one of 3+1 categories. You may fall into all of them, I guess, but definitely one of 3+1. So let's go through what these categories are. And you, if you're one of those people, can decide where you fall, because you certainly have to fall into at least one of these categories. Maybe you know somebody who falls into one of these categories, or at least one. But let's talk about it, because there's got to be a reason, and I got this figured out. Okay, seriously though, I do. Number one, if you have no regrets for voting for Joe Biden, this could be the case. Number one, and this is in no particular order. Number one, you don't know what's going on. Like, you don't have a clue. You're one of those people who you go and you vote, or you went and you voted, but you're not currently paying attention to what's going on and the mess that President Biden has made and is making. You don't have a clue. And so again, examine yourself. Do you fit into this category? Like, you don't know what's going on. You don't know what's going on with these mandates, with this, you've got to get the jab, or you're going to lose your livelihood, you lose your job. You understand that Joe Biden, you don't understand that he knows that it's unconstitutional, but he's going to do it anyway. He's forcing, businesses to do. I mean, it's an absolute unconstitutional, overreach, evil approach to this whole situation with the coronavirus. Okay. And so you might not have a clue. Okay. You fall into that category. You don't have a clue about gas prices. I don't know. Maybe you jump on the subway. I'm not, you're from the city, you jump on, I don't know. You just you're not paying attention. You're clueless. You got nothing with the gas prices. You don't follow anything about energy, how he's blocking energy independence. You don't have a clue about that. You don't have a clue about the race baiting, which, of course is nothing new to the left. That's what they do. But you're not, you're clueless about that. You're not following, you don't understand about where he is in terms of supportive basically gender reassignment. You just don't know. And if you're I don't know if you care about this. I hope you would, but maybe you don't know his stance on abortion and how, he's waffled. I don't know if that's a word I'm trying to use, but how he's says one thing, and I'm a pro-life, and then people, then he's not, then whatever. But you don't know. Okay, you just don't have a clue. So if you don't regret your vote for Joe Biden, that could be one reason why. You just are clueless. Why would you regret it? You don't know what's going on, right? Okay, that's fair. You don't know what's going on. Why would you regret it? That's number one. Okay, because I said, if you don't regret your vote for Joe Biden, you have to fall into at least one of 3+1 categories. That was number one. Your head is buried in the sand. Number two, you are so drunk on partisanship, you can't see straight to make a rational decision about regret, because you see everything through the lens of your political party. It's not about principle, it's about party. Those people who say, I'm a fill in the blank and I'll always be a fill in the blank. I'm a Democrat in this case of Joe Biden, you might say, and I'll always be a Democrat. And you are so consumed with that. And I know people like that. They will defend anything because it's party over everything. They don't care necessarily about the issues. They don't care necessarily about the background of the politician, the candidate, if it's time to vote, or the politician after election. They don't care. They are all about party. And there are people like that. They don't even need to know who's running. They don't need to know the record. They don't care. It's partisanship. So they're not going to regret, no matter what mess the president is making and what a poor job he might be doing. It doesn't matter. He fits into my party. So that's the second reason that I say, if you have no regrets, that may be one of your reasons. And you can only answer that if you would be honest with yourself. You can honestly say, you know what, I honestly, I'm never going to vote for anybody but a Democrat. I'm never going to vote for anybody, and it works the same way if it's the other side. I'm never going to vote for anybody if they're unless they're a Republican, and that's just as bad. So I'm not making excuses either way, but I'm saying that might be one reason why you don't regret it. So I've given you two. One, you just clueless. Two, you're all about party. So you're not going to regret voting for Biden because he was the Democrat and that's all you care about. And you can't see straight. You can't see beyond that. That's all you can see. You may not even be able to see why certain things are a bad thing because the Democrat, because it's Biden, because he's, he was Obama's vice president. So you can't process that the things that are happening are horrible. Okay? You can't seem to, for some reason, the partisanship has you so intoxicated that you can't see that punishing people for choosing not to have something jabbed into their body and then forcing them, we'll take their livelihood. We'll make sure they don't have any money. And you can't see that that's not right because he's a Democrat. And that's all you care about. You can't see straight. You can't think straight because you are so consumed. And that's scary. If anybody has you like that, that's scary. Okay? So there's that. You have to answer. Do you fit into that category? Number 3. This is a tough one, but I'm going to say it. Maybe you fall into this third category, and that is you just don't love America. And before you get offended, think about it. Because I'm having a hard time trying to figure out how anybody doesn't see that where we are right now in this country is not good. It's not good. And I didn't I mentioned the mandates. I mentioned the gas prices. I mentioned blocking energy independence, race baiting, all that. I didn't even mention how Americans were treated in Afghanistan, how he handled the Afghanistan situation. I didn't even go there, where you kowtow to the Taliban, and you leave equipment behind, and you leave Americans behind, and withdraw troops, and you just made an absolute mess, a mess that cost people. I mean, so I'm kind of jumping back there, but if you don't find that problematic, I I don't get it, other than one of these three reasons. Number one, you don't have a clue what's going on. You like Afghanistan? What? Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. Number two, you're so drunk on partisanship, you can't see straight. You wouldn't know the regret because it's Democrat. And number three is what I said. You don't love America. Believe it or not, there are people who agreed with a former president, and I'm not talking about Trump, I'm talking about the former, and Barack Obama, people who agree with his mindset about fundamentally transforming America. We know these people, they for some reason, they won't leave, but they believe that America is horrible and racist, and and to defund the police, and all this stuff. Okay? And they really don't love America. They blame America for everything. They don't honor our accomplishments. They don't honor what we've done for other nations. They don't honor our founding. They don't love America. And so they don't mind America being a mess. They don't mind a president coming in and doing the equivalent of taking somebody's hair and just messing it up, just rubbing their hands all in their hair, and it just come out looking like Bernie Sanders. Sorry about that, Bernie. But seriously though, if you don't love America, and even if you want to see America fail, if you want to see America be fundamentally transformed, even, why would you regret voting for Joe Biden? Because he's doing some damage to this country. And if you don't see it, then maybe you're just drunk on the partisanship, or maybe you're clueless, or whatever. But you couldn't, in my opinion, love this country and not say, you know what, I cast the wrong vote. I cast the wrong vote because this is off the charts. So maybe you don't. Maybe you're not interested in how we treat our military. Maybe you're not interested in that we are energy independent. Maybe you're not interested in the economy. You're not interested in the race baiting. You don't care. You don't care about that which pertains to this country. You don't love America. And I'm not saying America's perfect. I mean, I can know it's not perfect and still love my country. It's the best place on the planet, and which is why the people who are complaining are still here. Which is why some of these sports figures, they do what they do while they, run their mouths and bash our country and then get rich off of us. But maybe you don't. So I said there were three categories plus one. Let's go over this again. If you don't regret, or your neighbor doesn't regret, the vote for Joe Biden, if you voted for him, which again, I did not. One, you're clueless and you don't know what's going on. Could be that. So why would you regret it? Number two, you're such a partisan. You're such a Democrat that you can't see straight enough to have that rational decision. It's all about party with you. Or you just don't love America and you don't mind it being destroyed and uprooted. Now, I said three categories plus one. So I'm going to throw in the bonus. That's the plus one. There's a bonus. And I wanted to keep this separate because it's so intense. perhaps you fall into this plus one. You don't regret that you voted for Joe Biden, or people that we know don't regret that they voted for Joe Biden, or people we don't know, because you despise, or they despise, Donald Trump so much. Yeah, I said Donald Trump. They despise Donald Trump so much that they, or you, would rather have a Biden who is clearly a mess as a president. They would rather have Biden because that's how much they can't stand Trump. Because orange man bad. They just, some hate him. Some you can't even mention his name to. That you can't, you don't regret Biden because you just can't stand Trump. And the alternative was Donald Trump. And there was no way that you were going to embrace that. And so even today, even though you might look and say, oh man, maybe you're in this plus one, you're thinking, oh man, this is some rough stuff we're in with these mandates, with the, with the prices, with the, all the, I mean, it's just, this is bad. I didn't expect that. But you don't really regret it because you go, I'll endure that. We'll endure that because the other alternative was Donald Trump. And I couldn't possibly have voted for Donald Trump. And to regret my vote for Biden, I would have to then acknowledge that I should have voted for Orange Man Bad. But here's the thing. No matter what you thought of Donald Trump as a person and how he handled things or whatever, he did some good things. And it was the Biden administration's decision to come in and reverse the good. Why? Because they despised him about as much as you do if you fall into this plus one category. And so they were willing to undo the good that was done because that's how much they despise Trump. So your lack of regret is not necessarily in this category. It's not necessarily because you don't know what's going on. It's not necessarily that you are just so drunk on partisanship either, because there are people on the right. There were Republicans, perhaps conservatives, who did not vote for Donald Trump either, did not support him either, because same thing, they're the never Trump people. Okay, so it doesn't even necessarily mean that you're drunk on partisanship. It doesn't necessarily, well, I shouldn't say it doesn't necessarily mean you don't love America, because I think if you, I don't know, I got to think about that one. Because if you are so, I just hate Trump, I mean, to me, that kind of speaks to you. How could you love this country and then be in favor of undoing the good because, Orange Man bad? But I understand that plus one is deep. That's deep for people. And I think this is worth thinking about. So number one, you're clueless. Perhaps number two, you're drunk on partisanship. Number three, you don't love America. Or number four, you just despise Trump so bad that you'd rather have Biden even if he messes everything up. Because you couldn't have Trump, because Trump was this, that, and the other thing. Speaking of Donald Trump, let me say this. I posted on social media the other day this. I wrote, 5 years ago today, we elected Donald Trump for president. I know I'm not alone when I say I would gladly endure a, quote, mean tweet for the freedoms we've now lost, the strength we've surrendered, and the America First agenda folks scoffed at and foolishly labeled racist. Things sure have changed in this country in less than a year, which is exactly why we need to be careful what we ask for and the folks we vote for, and we need to look deeper than personalities. Hashtag, don't blame me. I voted for Trump. Okay? So, like I said, a few days ago, it was 5 years. And a lot of the complaints from these people who fell into the plus one category of not regretting their vote for Biden was about personality. It was about Trump was not presidential. Trump, you know, Trump spoke to, you know, he said he spoke his mind too much. And so they got into that personality. They couldn't stand him, and then he was labeled a racist. A lot of his words taken out of context. Even when he denounced things, people didn't want to see it that he was denouncing it. They just, oh, he never denounced, you know, racism or white supremacist, or, you know, and they wanted him to. It's like, well, what do you want from this guy? You know. So he's racist if he makes now he's not a polished politician. He's not a polished politician, and so he didn't necessarily say everything as it should have been said, and a lot of his words got twisted and misconstrued and all that other stuff. So there's that. Okay, and he's also that tough New Yorker counterpuncher, and he was not going to just sit there and take it. I'm parking out here on this +1 for a little bit. Okay. But he was just not going to sit there and take it. Now, there were times when I spoke out and I said, look, you know, there's certain things that he could have ignored. You don't need to punch down. You're the president. Now, I think there's certain things, yeah, you've got to speak up. We've had presidents who allowed people to just dish on them, and they never fought back. And that wasn't good either. And then with President Trump, it was a situation I felt where there were times when he could have just not said anything, not tweeted anything, just let it go. And other things that he should have fought back on. But that's who we had. That's who we had. And I say this when people are like, oh, he wasn't presidential. What do you call presidential? We needed and still need a fighter. And he was willing to fight for America. As I mentioned to someone recently, it wasn't time to be cute. It wasn't time to be cute. Now, maybe there was a cute time, but we're not living in the cute time. We needed a president who was going to fight for us and fight for America first, put Americans first. We're in a situation right now, I didn't even mention this either, with this immigration, where we have a president who's going to pay illegals. Meanwhile, taking away jobs from people who choose not to have an experimental vaccine. And he's going to pay illegals to be, I mean, we're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars. I think it was supposed to be 450,000, which he backtracked on or whatever. I don't know what it is, but he feels like they deserve something. We have a president that's allowing people to come into the country, illegals come into the country. They don't have to be vaccinated. They can just come on in. But anybody coming in legally, or anybody who's already here, well, they're not going to have a livelihood because they have to be vaccinated and show proof of that. Trump would have never gone for that. Never. Some of the things they're going, never. What happened in Afghanistan, you know, leaving our troops behind, that never. Okay? And he didn't do it cute. I know that. He wasn't, quote, presidential, whatever that's supposed to mean. Okay. We grant you that. But to me, one of the marks of being presidential is actually loving your country and putting it first, putting its citizens first, not threatening them with losing their jobs, not giving money to people who are illegal, but people saw that as racist, wanted to call that racist. It's not racist to uphold the oath of office. But again, some people fall into that category because they just couldn't stand Trump. So they don't regret voting for Biden because the alternative was someone they didn't, want to vote for. And we could get into all day whether Biden actually won the election, but that's a whole different story. I'm going to share this before I end concerning Trump again, and that is this. I find it fascinating because I've observed. I find it fascinating that many of the people who can't stand Trump, who just, when he was president, was like, ugh, and can't stand him now because, oh my goodness, he's got such a big mouth and he just says too much and he needs to sit down and shut up and he's too bold and he's all, arguing with people and fighting, giving them nicknames and, all kinds of, he's just nasty. The thing about it is a lot of the people who disagreed with the way he did things or how he spoke out or how he, had an attitude or whatever, many of them are just like that. I don't mean that they're nasty people, but because I don't consider Trump having been nasty, but I considered him a fighter and he was going to speak his mind, But it's funny to me that some of the same people who just had a problem with the way Trump dealt with people and how bold he was and how he could cut you off in a second with one word or one tweet. Many people who said they didn't like that were just like that themselves. They will tell you off in a minute. They will cut you down in a minute. Now, granted, they're not president of the United States. Okay? They're not president of the United States. I'll grant them that. But still, they are whoever they are, wherever they work, wherever they go. And they gonna tell you off if you need to be told off. And yet, some of these people, I can't stand that in Trump. I can't stand it. And it's like, why? Because you feel like you're looking in the mirror at yourself and you don't like what you see about you? I've had situations before where there are certain people, I look at them and there's something about them that reminds me of something about me that I don't like about me. And so I always have a kind of problem with that person because I'm looking at myself and I'm like, oh, I'm seeing the weakness in myself maybe. So I don't know. So some of these people who just don't like Trump, maybe you might think about how much you actually like him. You kind of bold too. You kind of speak your mind too. You kind of cut people off, cut them with your eyes too. Well, food for thought. Because listen, we are less than a year in. And this mess that we are experiencing is, it's a mess. So if you honestly don't regret voting for Joe Biden, and that's not even talk about a lot of the things people are saying about just how aware he might be or mentally aware. I don't make jokes about that because I don't find that funny. There are people who really think that he's dealing with some kind of, cognitive issue. And they laugh about it, joke about it. And I've shared before, I don't find that funny at all. But there are reasons people feel, legitimate reasons that people feel that perhaps he's, not in the best mental state, cognitive state. I'm not a doctor. I don't know. But, so there's that. But, again, there are people who say they don't regret voting for Joe Biden. And if that's true, and they're not just saying that, again, they fall into at least one of 3+1 categories. One, again, they don't know what's going on. They're clueless. Two, some folk ain't clueless. They're just partisans. And they don't care about anything but their political party. Three, they don't love America. And or four, they just hate Trump. So it could be 1, 2, 3+1 of those, or it could be, it could be all those, or it could be one or two or whatever. But there's got to be a reason. And I believe it's one of these, because there ain't no way in the world, there's no way in the world that there should be one person who doesn't regret that Joe Biden is the president of the United States. No way. Think about it. Think about it. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Adrienne Ross Show. I'm always glad when you're tuned in. And if you find this content valuable, enjoyable, insightful, maybe even entertaining, would you go to Apple Podcasts or any other place where you listen? Go to YouTube and, or maybe you're already on YouTube, leave a comment. A review or rating really matters and it helps. I know you think it's not important, but it is. So I ask that you do that. Would you please rate and review this show, The Adrienne Ross Show? And also, would you go to thebmgnetwork.com and listen to the other podcasts that we have throughout the week? They too are insightful and informative and entertaining. And so I don't want you to miss that also. That's thebmgnetwork.com. So thank you for tuning in, and I will catch you on the next episode of The Adrienne Ross Show. God bless you abundantly. The Adrienne Ross Show was produced and edited in the BMG studio. The music was provided by Kevin MacLeod. Find more episodes of The Adrienne Ross Show at thebmgnetwork.com and major podcast platforms. Be sure to tune in regularly You don't want to miss even one episode.